Hi, Michelle. So I'm actually super excited to be talking to you today. Welcome.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, awesome. I would love for you to share a little bit more with the listeners what it is that you're focused on and are doing right now.
Yeah, so the work that I do is I'm essentially helping people to reimagine work. So I believe that the way that we're actually working is a little bit outdated. This concept that we have to sign our time over to a business for X amount of hours for X amount of income. And so I work with people who are in their careers, professionals, already successful people, but who are sort of plotting their escape, but they don't know what it is that they're going to do next or how to make that work. And then I also work with those people who've made that leap and who are running their businesses. And we actually make sure that they design businesses that are really sustainable, that really give them the lifestyle they want, the money they want, all of those aspects. And grow them into the places that they want to be. So that, in a sort of nutshell, is the work that I'm doing these days.
I love it because I think you're speaking to a lot of people, especially when you say who are plotting, uh, and maybe even one step before that, dreaming of their escape. So I can't wait to get into more details. So can you tell us a little bit more about your own career journey? And it doesn't have to be that you work for somebody, but like what has been your professional evolution?
Yeah, so I'll just preface this with about 15 years ago, I was sitting in a seminar in London and I can't remember who was speaking, but this particular individual said, I believe everybody has four careers. And not that I necessarily believe that everyone has four careers, but it really resonated with me. And I would say my first career was I was a scuba diving instructor and a shark photographer, which I trained as a diving instructor at 18 before I went off to university. And then I did it during university. And then I left university and I went off and photographed sharks because
Wow.
that's what my heart wanted to do. And I wasn't ready to sit in an office yet. And then since then, I've had more than a decade's consulting career, about 13, 14 years. And then I left that. It'll be 6 years ago, almost next month. So if you're listening to this, I think it's July 2024 as we're recording this. So in 1 month's time, 6 years since I left that career and decided that there was going to be a better way for me to work and live my life. And I was going to go and work out what that was. And so since then, I have been doing my own thing, running my own business. So that's kind of the 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 way I've gone as such. And my consulting career was very much in the brand and culture strategy space. So I would work with exec teams around if this is the business strategy, what's the culture we need to drop that into to be successful? And then how do we design stuff through the lens of the brand to deliver the brand experience, both internally and externally of that organization. So that's kind of my background. So I was kind of a little bit in the mindset and belief space even before I became a master hypnotist, which is obviously a big component of what I do now.
Amazing. So you sound like an explorer.
I think I probably am. Yeah. Yeah. I like to try new things. And I think that's probably why the work that I do is challenging and, helping my clients imagine something different from where they are right now. So it's exploring all of those possibilities, but from a practical point of view as well, because, it's all great imagining things about a new career or business, but we've got to land it in something that you can tangibly create and make money from, because at the end of the day, we need to be able to do that part.
I love that because the first part is very inspiring, right? I even felt inspired when you were starting off the conversation, telling us what you do. But I love the combination of what you're saying because we can get excited. We can write these visions, right? Or this is what I want my ideal day to look like and feel like, and this is what I'm doing. But then we get stuck in the practicality of it. Then there's okay, but what is it, right? On a high level, but having trouble integrating and converting it into real world careers,
Mm.
work, businesses, whatever it is. Um, so adventure came to me when you're like talking about scuba diving. That's awesome. And photographing sharks, and then consulting and then hypnotherapy. So it sounds like you really go for things. How are you guided?
how do I choose what I do?
Yeah, how are you guided, right? Because these are like these not necessarily what you think of a career ladder, right?
Yeah, I would say, and it's such a, I realize it's a not such a tangible answer, but I am quite intuitive and I follow my intuition. I also have a lot of trust in myself. So if I feel something is correct for me or not correct for me, then I follow that. But I do believe that all us humans do this. We stay in things too long. I think
Yes.
most people, once they finally leave a relationship and they leave a job or they leave a city or whatever it is, they realize they've stayed in it too long. And I would say that probably one of my skills is knowing to leave relatively early. There's definitely places I stayed too long, but I think that would be part of it as well. I mean, the other aspect of it is that I work very much with my human design, and I don't know if your listeners are familiar with human design, but following the strategy and authority very much for myself means that I feel like I make choices that are correct for me, as opposed to necessarily following what I believe I'm supposed to do. Because I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. You know, there is this whole kind of almost life that's lined up for us. You know, if you do this thing and you do that thing, you go to college or university and you get a degree and then you move your way up the ladder and you get better jobs and you buy a house and you get married and you have kids and you do X, Y, Z, you're going to be happy. And as most people learn, there is the point at which that doesn't always fit for everybody all the time. And that's the key, I think, knowing when to switch that up.
It takes a lot of courage
But yeah, I guess to some extent,
for
but
clarity. Have you, when you make a switch, do you feel certain? Like, do you feel confident? Yes, this is the direction.
I feel confident in making a change. I don't always know the end destination. And this is something I would say to your listeners, and I see this with lots of people I work with. Lots of people are waiting for this clarity, and they need this full clarity before they make the move. You know, and if you're sitting in a particular career or job and you're waiting for this perfect clarity of the next step, you're probably not going to get there. You almost need to start taking some steps, have a bit of faith in yourself and the process, and you learn, and that clarity, it gets clearer and clearer and clearer. But it's never this kind of really binary, I don't know what I'm doing, then now I'll know what I'm doing. And I
Mhm.
think that's, people use clarity as a way to hold themselves back. It becomes a self-sabotaging technique that's very logical for the brain. The head is very much like, well, we need clarity because we can't do this if we don't know where we're going. But
Yep.
actually, there's lots of things you can do in between to gain that clarity.
Wait, you have to repeat it. This is really good. We keep ourselves stuck by waiting on clarity.
Yeah. Yeah. So people want the 100% the next outcome of what that thing should be. So if I'm sat in here in a job, I want to know exactly where I'm going.
How much
And
making,
so what's that? Sorry.
how much I'll be making, what my life and day to day will look like.
Well, the exact destination. And I mean, I've got a couple of examples here, like from my personal experience. When I left my career, which was, I say, 6 years ago, I knew I needed to leave it because it was a very cerebrally stimulating job. It was very interesting. I got to work with loads of smart people and go behind the scenes of all these big companies. But my heart was just like dying. I didn't feel on purpose. I didn't feel fulfilled. I was like, there's got to be something more. I didn't know what it was, but I started putting all the things in place to allow myself to leave. And then I left not knowing what was next. Now, I don't necessarily suggest that that's the solution for everybody, but sometimes you've got to explore a bit to land where you land. You can't always know exactly where you're going. Like if I give you this analogy, imagine I'm in a, romantic relationship with somebody. I've got a partner, and I say to you, I'm not happy with this man. This is not the partner for me. I'm not thriving in this relationship. I'm unhealthy, I'm unhappy, and I'm unfulfilled. And then I say to you, but I'm not going to leave it until I've got a new boyfriend. Like anybody in their right mind would be like, that's crazy.
But
Like,
but we sometimes think that because our mind, like you said, craves a certainty, craves the knowing.
yeah, but we also know it's healthier to leave that relationship, perhaps spend some time on our own, and then meet the next partner that's correct for
Mhm.
wherever we are. And it's the same with our career. we don't want to leave this until we've got this. And I recognize that there is money at play here. We all have to make money unless we're lucky enough to have a trust fund. So, absolutely, we can't afford for the most part to just walk away from not having any income. But there also can be a transition period where you can discover and explore and really get into what you want so that you actually move into the next correct thing and not just something that looks like the thing you've been in now. Because that often happens, we move to another job or we create a business which is really just a mirror of where we are now. So it's exciting for a few months because it's novel. And then we go, oh, actually, I feel back where I was. And all you've done is just prolong the time that you're sort of slightly off of the path that you really want to be on.
Right, because there's a that same what you're talking about, the craving, the certainty, craving the clarity, um, that comes from the mind. It's our mind trying to keep us safe, and safe means familiar. So there's a
100%.
lot of that's a really actually, that's I think another testament to your courage, because it's very uncomfortable. It sounds easy, but it takes a lot of strength to go through what you're going through, because there's a lot of temptation to go back and a lot of draw to go back to, okay, if I was I had 15 years in something, 10 years in something, to go back in a similar role just for a different company. You know,
Mm, yeah. I mean, but you can also spin that the other way. Like what I say to everybody, if you're good at what you do, you will always be able to go back into it.
Mhm.
If you've reached a point where you've got 10, 15 plus years in a career, you're an expert in that area. If you try something else and a year, 2 years down the line,
Mhm.
you think, "Oh, I want to go back," pretty much most careers you can go back. I still get approached now for consulting work that I used to do, but just being paid more now than I was 6 years ago. So it's always, I feel like it's always available to you. But I totally agree. I mean, I can think of a very specific scenario. This was, I don't know, 5.5 years ago, and I was sitting in a bar with a close girlfriend, and she had just reached this next like stage of her career, big significant pay rise, big, title increase. And it's the one that I was about to make as well, because we actually earned exactly the same money at the time. She was at KPMG and then she'd moved to somewhere else. And there's, of course, that part of you that goes, am I doing the right thing? Perhaps I should be doing that. Like that's the easy route. That's where I should be going. Um, but you have to tap into what you really, really want. And what is the definition of success that is absolutely true to you versus what you've been told? And for me, it's about how I spend my time. And that's what I want autonomy over. And that's what most people want to change is they want autonomy over their time, I think.
So can you share a little bit of how your process looked like when you said you left consulting after having a successful career in it, um,
Mm.
and not knowing what the next step is? So what was your process to uncover it?
Yeah. So from a very practical point of view, when I knew this was on the cards, I started building what I call the Freedom Fund.
Mhm.
And this is something that I also teach and support the people that I work with if they're in that place. And this was creating the magical pot of money that was going to allow me to safely and securely walk away from my career and not feel that I had to jump into another job, within a few weeks or a couple of months if it wasn't correct. I have to caveat that when I left my career, I wasn't planning to set a business up. I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. That hadn't even entered my field. I just knew I didn't want to do what I was doing. And I knew I wanted it to be something completely different. So the Freedom Fund is an important practical part of making sure that you can do it safely. And there's so much more to this than just how much money do I need to save to cover, X number of months without working. It's actually, and this is what I've built in since being a master hypnotist, it's how do we actually work with your subconscious so you feel super safe around money through this whole process. And even when you start working again or you build a business, you continue to feel safe. So that was the first practical thing that I did. The second thing that I did was I knew I needed space. So I just the nature of my job, and I'm sure many of your listeners will resonate with this. I worked a lot of hours. It was stressful. I was thinking about work all the time, pretty much. You know, I worked long hours. When I got home, I didn't have a lot of energy. So I didn't feel like I had headspace to work out what was next. So for me, that was about creating this space where I could walk out of work. I didn't know what was next, but I gave myself time to be able to explore options.
How much
Um,
how much time did
sorry.
you how much time did you give yourself?
So I created a freedom fund that allowed me to have 12 months out off of work if I wanted to.
Okay.
Yeah. And you know, there's lots of opportunities in that time to top that money up, but it was a fund that gave me 12 months. It also meant that I could take that money and reinvest it in further training or developing a product or whatever I came up with. So that was my approach.
Mhm.
So then I had the space, which I felt was very important. And the third component that I think is really, really important is I actively chose to surround myself with very different people,
Mhm.
because what you need to do this successfully is you've got to change your perspective. Now, I obviously do that now with so much of the hypnotic work that I do with clients. We can shift your perspective. And the thing is, when we shift your perspective, you are seeing a completely different world and what's available, right? Because what happens is that if you're sat here, you know, as you are today, and you would like to design a different life, if you just keep putting in the same ingredients, you effectively get the same thing. So when we change your perspective of what's possible, suddenly you start to imagine things that you can't imagine. You start to realize there's ways that you can make money that you couldn't think of, that you could, in fact, do the stuff that you really want to do, and you don't have to do this stuff that you think you have to do. I obviously at that time didn't have the hypnosis to support myself, but I actively chose people who were approaching work differently. So although I love them dearly, I spent less time with my friends who were climbing the corporate ladder, because I was
Mhm.
like, all that's going to do is make me think that I should be back climbing the corporate ladder. So I love them, but I spent a bit more time with people who were entrepreneurs, who were putting their time over making money, who were exploring, you know, different ways to structure their life, because it starts to change your perspective of what's possible.
Yeah, because if you're around just the same model, it kind of sucks you in. You know, if your best friend is in the same function, the same line of work, and you're like the FOMO and all the things, and you already know you kind of need to be drawn out of that model, right? To reimagine. I mean, because the pull is hard, is very strong
Mm.
to what you've known. I love that. So tell us, what did you do with the space? So you end, your last day, you have the fund, you have these kind of couple of strategies. So what are you actually doing? And how are you getting um to your answers, to actually realizing that you need to do your own thing, and it's sounds like focused on hypnotherapy.
Yeah, so I mean, the process that I work with people around, I have a very specific method. And the first place that we start with that is we actually look at your desire blueprint, because most people don't know what they really want, and they don't own what they really want. And you really have to start in this particular place. You'll find it's really interesting. I will ask clients, you can test this with people, ask people what they want, and they will tell you all the things they don't want.
Okay.
So you'll say, well, what would you like your career to look like? And people will say stuff like, well, I know I don't want to sit in front of a computer, and I don't want to work as many hours as I do, and I don't want to be as stressed, and then they might throw in a little bit of something they want. But most people don't really have a vision for what they want to create.
Okay.
And this is the interesting thing, right, is that people try to work out what is next from their head.
Mhm.
And if we talk about purpose, for example, lots of people are seeking purpose. They're seeking more meaning, right? That is the domain of the heart. You don't get purpose from the head. So if you are trying to work out your purpose, it just, you can't get there. If you have worked your purpose out from your head, then 9 times out of 10, that isn't your purpose. It's just something nicely constructed that you're now using as your purpose. So it's really important for us to get out of the head and get into the heart and get into the body and tap into what you really want. Because the head is constantly jumping in going, oh yeah, but no one's going to pay you for that. Oh, or you won't make enough money to do that. Or that's not possible, or you don't have the skill, or you don't know how to do that. And actually, we really got to tap into what do you really want? So we start there around what you want, not what you were told you would want and would make you happy. So there's a whole bunch of rewiring and work there. We look at your money blueprint because money is the biggest thing. If you ask people why they don't change, it's generally because I'm worried about money, I won't be able to make enough money. And a lot of times people will say time. But money's a big thing, right? So we've got to get you safe about potentially not having a monthly salary paycheck, of the same amount every month. If you're going to start running a business, it doesn't work that way. And even if you just want to go explore something else, you've got to get used to not seeing that money hitting your bank account, as well as like imagining the things that you could get paid for and how you could get paid. Because if you can change your experience of money, then the whole process becomes a lot more fun.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't become this concern about money all the time. So we look at that. We also look at your vitality blueprint because the reality is most people want to leave their jobs because they're really stressed. I in corporate roles across the world, we've all been working too hard. So most people are stressed, most people are burnt out, and we want time. We want to create businesses that work with the energy that we have, and we don't all have the same amount of energy. So it's all about creating a next stage of your career or a business that is good for you and keeps you healthy, that you feel vital in. We don't just want to step into something else where we're then just working and working and working and working. We've had this. We've spoken about work-life balance now for like the best part of 2 decades, and I don't think you'll find anybody in a full-time role who believes that they've ever created work-life balance. Like it's not. It shouldn't even be the goal. We've got another phase which is looking at work-life integration is sort of what I call it, where the two seem to fit really nicely together. But in that world, you've still got things that feel like work and things that feel like play. But then you've got this sort of next stage of alignment where when you're doing something that feels aligned, it all just feels like it weaves together.
Mm-hmm.
You don't feel like, oh, now I'm doing work and now I'm doing life. And now I'm doing work and now I'm doing life. It's just like all of it is your life.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm doing right now. I'm in Andorra at the moment and I'm hiking mountains and now I'm recording a podcast with you and I spoke with a client just before this and then I go do something else and it all just weaves together. It's not like, oh, this is work, this is not work, this doesn't feel like work, but
Yeah.
technically it's work.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think it's going even applying. I also love using the relationship analogy with work, and but whether you apply, let's say you have a partner, you don't stop being a partner at 5 and start being a partner, at 9. Same if you have kids, right? You don't stop being a mother at certain hour, right? Or I feel like it's almost like a false thing to strive for,
Mm.
but totally. And so you are teaching this process, this beautiful process, right? How others can kind of go through these steps. Would you kind of talk a little more kind of how, like, so how long did it take yourself, and how did you get the clarity, to start your own business and you got the answers, okay, now I'm gonna go
Mm.
this route.
Yeah. So I mean, it's very hard to say it took exactly this amount of time because there's been so many different iterations. But I will say that I spent the first few months, to be honest, regulating my nervous system,
Mhm.
getting rid of the stress that was
Yeah.
there from the career, which is important because, when you're stressed, you're in a very tunnel vision, foveal state. So it's very hard to see the possibilities. So I spent some time doing that. I had been meditating for quite a long time at this stage, and I loved meditation. And I thought, oh, I think I want to be a meditation teacher. So I actually trained as a meditation teacher. And then I thought to myself, okay, I think I want to become a coach, but I was very mindful that there was a lot of coaching qualifications and I wanted to find the right one. So I was happy to invest the time and the money, but it needed to be the right one. So I would say it was probably about 6 months after I had left my career that I started that. So I started a master's in coaching. And the first course, the first qualification that I did was actually my hypnosis practitioner. And hypnosis was not even on my radar. And I went along and I did that first course and I was like, I love this. This is what I want to do. And so as soon as I rolled off of that, I started to get hypnosis clients and I started doing hypnosis with people. And my hypnosis has moved and shifted over the years. I've done hypnosis with for pretty much anything you can think of, actually, from like sleep to stress to confidence to stop gambling, stop smoking, pretty much anything, because you can write hypnotic language for anything. So I've done that, but then I found that there was this really common theme, and I was doing a lot more work on what I thought I was really here to do. And so I've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs as well. A lot of them have come into my world, and it's evolved into actually supporting people to leave careers and build the businesses or the careers that they're looking for is is actually really exciting to me. So that's sort of, yeah. So to answer your question, because I don't think I did, it was it was probably 6 months until I started that coaching qualification, and some hypnosis clients shortly after that. But it has been evolving. It's been evolving year on year, which I think is always happens when you have your own business, right? It's
Yeah.
like this moving feast.
And it's life, right? Because you're getting, it's this dance. You're getting answers and you get further fine tuning and tweaks, right? To kind of like what you said, you decided coaching, but then it's like
Mm,
the therapy was you got connected, it was put in front of you, and then you really resonated with it. And so it sounds like from other people also I've talked to, it seems like kind of like these opportunities or, when you're on the path that's yours, that somehow, right, the synchronicities happen and life gives you feedback and it kind of flows easier in that direction. So would you say that once you took that hypnotherapy class or certification, was
mm.
it kind of like pretty easy? It was more like with the flow of a river, how it felt to kind of start doing hypnotherapy and getting
Yeah,
clients?
I mean, I feel that that is something I hit upon something that was something I should be doing. So I got, yes, a lot of feedback, a lot of invitations if we're talking human design, because I'm a projector. So my strategy is to wait for the invitation. That really started to flow in that space. But the key really is momentum. You know what it's like, as you take some steps, you create a bit of momentum and a bit more momentum and a bit more momentum. And the key is to not get so stuck on this final destination, but where am I at right now? What do I want to create here? What's happening? What have I got to play with here? And you just keep moving forward. And so this is why I would say, you don't have to have a fully formed business idea to start doing something. Doesn't mean you should just quit your job, absolutely not, but you can start playing with stuff. And I think what we also do, and this is, we often can get caught up on a particular system. So if we talk, human design is a system, hypnosis is a system, meditation is a system, consulting is a system, whatever you want to call it. And so we start to think about the system, and that seems to be the new thing. But actually, everybody has so much to be that, is part of them. You've got so much stuff for you to call on to pull into whatever it is you choose to do next. So when you can start to think a bit more expanded, I think that's when you come up with things that light you up a little bit more and not get caught down in I'm a coach or I'm a hypnotist or, you know,
Mhm.
I'm a podcast or I'm a marketer or whatever it is.
Yeah. Okay, okay. So human design, I know some people will know about it, some won't, so you're saying that you're a projector and you use your strategy to wait for an invitation. And so as you were trying things with this, when you kind of made, I don't know, the hypnotherapy offer or something, so you saw people kind of you saw invitations come your way, like people actually respond to you and kind of seek out that service?
Yeah, so what I must say is I didn't know about human design at the time. So as
Okay.
I look back retrospectively, I can see that. And for anyone who doesn't know what human design is, it's essentially your energetic blueprint. So it's not your psychology, it's not your personality. It's really, how you take in energy, how you move it around your system, and it speaks to really why you're here. So it's kind of got everything in there from your superpowers to your perspective to your life's work, your purpose, all of it sits in there. And the reality is most people are living their design to an extent. But the more you live your design, the more ease and the more flow that appears. And what I would say with this is, so as a projector, I'm supposed to wait for the invitation. It's sort of an energetic opening that invites me in. If you're not a projector, you have a different strategy. If this interests you, you can get your chart free on my website and some information to help you start looking at it. But also designing your life based on that is really valuable. So what I did when I first started my business, until I knew about this, I was trying to work like a generator or a manifesting generator, which for context are two types that have a lot of energy, who are the kind of go, go, go type. Projectors, we have a lot less energy because we don't have a defined sacral. And when I started working with coaches that were able to support me to build a projector business, which means that I do a lot more resting, I actually started making more money. I was much healthier. I was much happier. Everything started to open up. So the one thing I would also say, and this is the premise of my work, it's all individual. It's not, here's a process, everyone goes through this process. It's not a case of this worked for me, this would work for you. We are just moving into a phase where it's looking at exactly what you want and creating it in exactly a way that's correct for you. And that's not the same as the next person or the next person. So, and that's what I love about it, because you're never doing the same thing twice. You're always looking at how do we create this specifically for you, which I
Yeah,
think is really fun.
love that.
Mm.
So do you then work with people one on one, or do you do like a program with many people in it?
So I have a collective where these super cool people come into who are all doing similar stuff, and there's content that everybody can access. You are in a group where you can connect together, but I work one on one with people in that, so that we dig deep into the stuff for you. So if we really need to look at how we create a lifestyle with less stress, we're digging into that for you. Or if we're looking at these offers in your business and how do we create them for your human design type and for you to gain more customers, we're doing that for you. So yeah, do a lot of individual work, because as a projector as well, that's where I excel.
Mhm. I
I'm in
love
more of my genius. Yeah.
that. So you're collective, or I guess it's a membership site. Is that
It's more a mentorship.
okay?
More of a mentorship.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a
Mm.
your new career era.
Oh no, that's not the name of that. That's just another phrase that I use. So yeah.
Okay, 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 got
Like,
you. And
mm.
so you take the coaching class, it guides you to hypnotherapy. How did the hypnotherapy and related to specifically or focused on career change come about?
Yeah, so it's a theme that is coming up with so many clients. So many
Okay.
clients, and I have so clients who haven't come to me for anything to do with careers or business. It's always a theme that's in there, and it's a theme that I think we can see collectively. There's more and more people. And then also working with people who have started businesses, there's always themes that come up in that space as well, around how much time and energy they have, how on purpose their business feels. Do they design a business that they really, really love? And so at the end of the day, all of this requires a perspective shift. All of it requires you to look at the way that you view the world, or your beliefs and your mindset. And at the end of the day, hypnosis is brilliant for changing in that space. So the hypnosis is just one of the systems that I use, but that's sort of how it's all evolved from that, really.
So what is your purpose?
So my purpose, so I believe I'm here to help people reinvent how they work in the world, because the way that I see it is that I think we agree, we've got lots of challenges as a human race, things to solve over the next few decades. And I don't believe that all of those things are going to be solved by big businesses. I think some of the solutions, some of the innovations that we need are going to come from some of the very smart people that are sitting in those businesses at the moment, but aren't using all of their potential because they're confined by a certain role. And those people, when they're let loose and their real potential is let loose, the things that they're going to come up with, whether it's in startups, whether it's in their own businesses, whether it's, in other partnerships, is going to be some of the solutions we need. So I see my purpose as working with people to help them create these work lives that really allow them to access that potential and ultimately solve the problems that we need to solve collectively.
I can feel it. I can feel it in my heart.
Mm.
And it's so beautiful, right? To unleash. So essentially, you're talking about
Mm.
like the people who are sitting and they're using only a part of their, or constricted, and kind of
Mm.
unleashing that full light, that potential, and how much can it really add to this world. And I think this is kind of when we started talking, I said I went on your Instagram and I took a few notes, and you talk about um how, how do we you talk about this kind of new career era, and that many want to take, their careers to the next level, to radically own what they want and to live a full potential and expression, right? That's what I think that's the constriction, right, that we feel, like relating to your story when you were in consulting, right? You
Mm.
felt constricted. It sounds like you
Mm.
felt like there's something more to what you can do, and more to how you can express yourself, and you
Mm.
more to how you can feel, including the freedom that you mentioned. So what is standing in the way, and how do we clear it?
Well, I think a big part of it is leaving jobs, leaving careers that don't fulfill us and don't allow us to use our potential. I mean, for me, I wrote lots of really clever strategy that never got implemented by the businesses that I presented it to. They paid for it, I wrote it, they loved it, and then all the red tape that happens in big businesses happened, and then things don't get properly implemented. So I would look at that and I'd be like, is that a great way to use my time? Not really. Whereas now I can sit with a client for 75 minutes and we change something, and it doesn't require tons of PowerPoint decks and loads of red tape, so that's much more satisfying, and the reality is when we're in a job, we're confined by a direction and a set of KPIs, and that's the nature of it. So it's really, I think the question for people to ask themselves is, how do you want to spend your time? What lights you up, what makes you feel happy, but also how do you want to spend your time to leave some form of legacy? If you're seeking more meaning, what is it that you want to impact, and are you able to really impact that in the business or the career that you're in right now?
Mhm. And many people, I mean, the ones that probably who say yes, they feel fulfilled, they're probably not going to listen to this conversation.
Exactly. And there are some people, and I love that there are some people in some businesses who feel that.
Yeah.
Truly, truly. But
Yeah,
yeah, they're
exactly.
not listening to this.
Yeah, and they're great fit and content and can drive
Mm.
that shit forward, right? But many who will listen to the conversation, the answer is no, that they don't feel that impact, that they do feel like they're wasting time in some of the tasks, and they're just building somebody else's vision and strategy in life,
Mm.
actually, and product and company, and not fully aligned with themselves, or their own mission. So how do we connect with you talked about people not wanting what they want, but I think on a big scheme of things, right? Let's say we know we want all the goodness, we want all the abundance, we want all the um joyful, fun work that's energizing, right? And it fits our talents, right? And let us express ourselves fully. So let's say we know that.
Mm.
How do we work backwards to kind of what you mentioned, to marry it to the tangible? Like for you, it was like pieces of
Mm.
hypnotherapy, pieces of career rate coaching. Um,
Mm.
how how to reverse engineer then from that big vision to
Mm.
being practical?
Yeah. There's essentially two streams of work, if you want to call it that. So one of them is looking at your subconscious beliefs around it. Because if you absolutely truly believe it's possible for you and you have all the correct beliefs, you will go out and create it. But
Mhm.
the way that the conscious and subconscious mind works is you've got sort of the conscious mind over here that's sort of 4%, you've got subconscious that's 96%. We come up with a new thing, it's in our conscious mind, it's our new vision of where we want to go and what we want to do, but we have all the programming for the life we live now. So what you end up with is this sort of tug of war, our conscious mind going, yes, but we want to create this new life. And then the subconscious is here standing firm in this life. So it feels like we're stuck. So what we need to do is look at these beliefs that you have subconsciously and give you the ones that align with the new vision that you've got. And there's lots of ways I can talk about what I do as a hypnotist, but that's essentially it. We're working with the beliefs to give you the beliefs for whatever the thing you want, whether you want a new career, you want to stop smoking, you want to find a partner, whatever it is, you just, what are the beliefs that I need for the thing I want? So that's the first stream of work. And that's the thing that most people don't do. They don't address that part. They jump straight into the, okay, how do I do this? What do I need, etc. And there is a practical, tangible side of things to that, to design your revenue models or design how your work looks. And part of this is exploring it. I mean, it's quicker if you work with someone that knows. Otherwise, you can sit and work through it yourself. But a big part is also understanding that it's not like full-time employment, being an entrepreneur. There's so many things in between that. So if you're sitting in a career and you're going, I don't know if I want to run my own business, then that's fine. There's lots of other options in between. So
Yeah, how do you know? How do you know if you need to find another job or start your own thing?
well, that's, at the end of the day, you'll know inside yourself, but it's pulling that out. And that's why working with someone can help you to pull that out and design that and help you work through the questions that you need to ask yourself to find what's the correct path for you. And it changes as well. If you've got young children, you might want to do something different to when your children are older, or, we've all got lots of things happening in our lives at different times. So that can also shape and evolve. It's not always like this. There's often, these periods, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think to illustrate kind of what you were talking about, the subconscious mind and conscious mind, and then these beliefs and what your life is really expressing, it most
Mm.
likely is what you what your subconscious mind holds on to or believes, and so a lot of exercises, right? What I've heard of uncovering these beliefs, there's still uncovering these subconscious beliefs that are driving a lot of your life and its expression right now. I've heard they're still using the small part of your conscious mind. If you, I think it's very often the analogy or illustration of the conscious and subconscious mind that's used as an iceberg, right? The conscious mind is the smallest part that you can see. And then in
Mm.
the depths, there's, like you said, what you said, that anchoring part, this huge part that's keeping you where you're at is that subconscious mind. But how do we truly access the subconscious beliefs? Because I mean, yeah, you play around, you hear, whatever my parents or what my how my mom lived, how my dad lived, what they said, right? What am I must be believed. But I feel like there's still a lot in big parts, there are guesses, right? And do we have to know? Uh, what our subconscious beliefs are to instill new ones.
So you want to know what you're working with, absolutely. I mean, you need to know the space that you're working in. So some of it, I'd say you can split it into two groups, right? So you've got some of the stuff that's quite obvious in the sense that you can logically go, okay, if I have been working in full-time employment for the last however many years, that I've probably got a lot of the beliefs around work of someone who works in that. And so if I want to be an entrepreneur, then what beliefs might an entrepreneur have about work and money and income? And there's going to be differences. There absolutely is going to be differences. So there's that kind of logical side of stuff that you can do a little bit more from your conscious mind. And then there's the group that can also be really interesting to look in. And I talk about this is the beliefs that we think are facts. So these are things that because we can sit here and say, oh, I know that I believe this and I know that's not correct. So I know that I believe that I need to go to work, but I know that I could run a business. There's that level of awareness. But then there's some things that we just think they are facts. And when it's at that level of fact, it is so fixed that it's something that's not movable for us. And we don't even look at changing it. So I'm trying to think of a really good example to share with you. And I've got a longer example that I can share.
Yeah.
So I was working with I was working with a construction firm a couple of years ago, and we were talking about mental health and stress in construction, and I was challenging them a little bit around what that might look like. And this particular director turned around and said that construction is the most stressful industry. Now, that is not a fact, right? But the way that he holds that is like a fact. So construction's very stressful. Dentists, lawyers, they tell you it's very stressful. There'll be lots of people listening to this who'll be like, my industry is very, very stressful. We actually don't know what is the most stressful, even though there's, lists out there. And the challenge is that when you've got a fact, is that you sort of, and you'll know you've got it because you stamp your feet and you defend it. And, in this particular instance, it's like, all due respect, you don't know our industry well enough, or, that's just not how it works here. Or you'll hear people go, but that's just how it is in my life. Or I have kids, that's how it is. Or this is my financial situation, or et cetera, et cetera. And the problem is that these are the ones that if you can pull on these ones and change these and realize that they aren't facts, they're just your beliefs, and your beliefs can change. And something isn't a fact if someone else doesn't believe it, because all the facts we all see the same, essentially. So they're the ones that are really interesting to look at. So you've got all the surface level ones we've discussed, but then also what are the things that you really think are facts, and to play around with those. And as far as how you find these things out, I mean, our language gives us away, like but you have to know how to listen to the language. So you can get so far on your own, but then if you feel like something's really keeping you stuck, that's where working with a professional is helpful,
Yeah.
essentially. Mm.
Yeah. Definitely. It's hard to catch our own blind spots.
It is. It totally is. Yeah.
And then we can just go in the same circle. So I think like another question I had jotted down, what is the new approach to success, income, and time? I think you started answering it, in some of your answers, but anything you want to add?
It's down to each individual. I mean, this is the beautiful thing about it. We can design our own definition of success. And when we tap into the one that is really ours and not the one that we've adopted from our parents, from society, etc., then we're much, much happier. And so it's really your definition of success is like, how do you want to spend your time? How do you want to make your money? Like, what do you want your day to look like? What do you want your life to look like? So it's about redefining that. And it's realizing that the model that we have been working to, of working for somebody else, working 9 to 5, or some version of that, you can totally keep doing that if you want to, but you don't have to. It's up for grabs.
Mhm. And does
Mm.
it so much have to do with our values, like understanding your own values?
Yeah, I mean, your values are essentially what's important to you, right? So you want to fill your life with as much of what is important to you. And we are most satisfied when we are able to experience our values every single day.
Mhm.
So, and our values work in such a way that they all interlink together. So, yeah, if you get really clear on what's important to you and how you want that to actually tangibly look, because this is another part that people get stuck on. They talk very big picture and they don't actually pull it down into something really tangible. So, for me, time autonomy is a really big part of me feeling successful. So, okay, but what does that really look like? It looks like me being able to go and live where I want and hike when I want and surf when I want, book clients in at times that work for me. And it wouldn't, like today, we're recording this on a Saturday, but this totally works for me. This is a really good day of the week for me to do it this week,
Mhm.
and there's some days next week when I should be working that I'll be off doing something else fun. So it's like pulling stuff down into the details, make it tangible for yourself so you can create it.
So tell me, like, so now you've designed, right, architected this life and work.
Mm.
Um, Comparison to what when you were in consulting, like, is there like, how do you feel? Like, what's the difference in how you
Oh,
feel? Because you're still working, right? I'm sure
yeah.
there's still work, sometimes work that you don't want to do. It's not all just hiking and and not working, but like what's the difference in Michelle?
Well, I'm not stressed. I'm not stressed. I'm much happier. I'm much more fulfilled. And I feel like I have more control. So, for the most part, honestly, there's not that much that I don't like doing. And it's my business. So I get to go, like I was writing these weekly emails. And I don't really like writing emails. And so a couple of months ago I thought, well, what would I like to do? Well, I like talking. So I just changed my email to a voice note instead, which takes me 15 minutes to do, whereas the other one took me probably about an hour or so to do. And this is the beautiful thing. It's like there's so much stuff we think we should do. And actually, we can just ask ourselves the question, like, how can I make this easier? If you are a business owner, how do I make this easier? So yeah, I mean, there's obviously things I have bookkeeping to do, and there's stuff like that I have legal requirements around. But generally speaking, most of what I do, I like doing it because otherwise I change it.
Yeah, and you can change it. You have the influence, autonomy, and the ability to. I love that. Did you ever,
Mm.
when you were on your exploration journey, whether it was already, when you're in your consulting career and kind of thinking, right, building towards that freedom fund, or when you took the time, right, in between, did you do any of the outside of human design, right? Did you do any of the like disc profiles, strengths finders, any of those tests?
So disc, so I'm a disc practitioner, so I'm trained in disc. So yeah, I do know my disc profile, and I know my Myers-Briggs. But I'm not so familiar with Enneagram. I ran it once many years ago, but I it didn't at the time resonate with me much, so I put that one down. But yes, I'm familiar with disc and Myers-Briggs.
And did that help inform you in any of your decisions, on your journey?
I'll say not really, actually, if I'm honest, because I felt like disc. I sort of knew I'm the I, I'm the yellow, I'm the influencer type.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm relationships, and I knew that I had a very relationship, based role as a consultant. So it kind of reaffirmed what I knew, and similar with Myers Briggs. But I think if you're drawn to something and it feels like a useful input, then explore it. And if it doesn't feel useful, you can just put it down.
See, I feel that many people also I can also relate, and others will be able to relate that we take these tests, people take these tests, but then, so they feel seen, right? You're like, oh yes, this is so like they're telling me, they're seeing me, right? That I can relate to what the assessment is saying. That's me. But then to convert it into actual direction, can be hard.
Yeah, well, I think again, it's a bit high level, really. It doesn't tell you what's next, and you
Yeah.
can't expect something outside of you to tell you what's next.
Mm.
And really, a lot of it keeps us in this space, especially something like disc of like a lot of our strengths, you know, and if you're going to explore again from that space, you're going to end up in probably a similar space to where you've been before. So, because what people do, right, is they go, I'm a so and so, this is my profession, this is the experience I have, these are the qualifications I have, these are the skills I have and strengths I have. Okay, what else can I do with that? But that keeps you in a really similar space. You actually need to kind of explode that, look at it differently, so that you can possibly end up in a completely different space to what you can imagine right now.
Mm.
Uh,
I love that.
mm.
I bet though many people come to you looking for that answer from you as a coach.
Well, I mean, I'm a projector. I'm here to guide. So I don't. I have gate 11, so I have a lot of ideas, but I am not here to tell you what it is. But I'm here to guide you so you can work it out yourself, and then help you shape it into something tangible that works. But yeah, it's a lot of people don't listen to themselves. It's getting used to listening to yourself and what you really want.
Yeah, yeah, we want the expert to tell us, somebody else to tell us the answer to be external when it's inside of you. It seems like it's the hardest to access.
Yeah. Well, we busy ourselves, don't we? Most people are so busy outside of themselves in the outside world. You've got to create a little bit of that space to. to go inside and tap into what you want.
How long have you seen it takes people, like realistically,
Mm.
to tap into something meaningful? Because I think we want it quick, right?
Yeah, it usually takes a few months. And I say that because we're not, to my point earlier, we're not going from here to complete clarity. It's like something pops out quite quickly and then we explore that a bit and that grows and that shifts and that. So it's, it's not like just one day you go, oh, this is what I'm going to do. It evolves, and then we shape it and we go, how does that feel? And then we think, oh, yeah, that feels really good. And then we could do this. And so it's sort of, and then other people come with sort of a vague idea, but then we dig into that in a bit more detail. And some people come with no idea whatsoever. So both is perfect,
Yeah,
essentially.
because how, like, so you could have so many ideas, especially with all this information, right? You can have, you see somebody, all these people remodeling their houses, and you're like, oh, maybe that's it, right? Or you're like, oh, somebody's growing flowers. Maybe I can do that. Somebody else is sewing, and made their own business. Somebody decided coaching, so many coaches, right? Or somebody decided hypnotherapy and all
Mhm.
and on and on and on, all these options. And I interviewed a couple episodes ago, I released an interview with Elaine Glass, who is the author of the book Quiet, and she spent 20 years as a dental hygienist before transitioning, into coaching. And she in the book she shares this process of or steps of getting quiet, and also essentially uncovering the answers, right? And that direction and guidance within yourself. But what would you say? So how do we um, know which step from all of those ideas, which one is ours, right? What is our soul's direction, really?
Mm. So there's a couple of things. I'd say if you know your human design, follow your strategy and authority, because that's really the universe giving you the breadcrumbs, leading you in the right way. So follow your strategy and use your authority to determine if something is correct for you or not correct for you. And the other thing I'd say is people get, as I say, stuck down in the what, you know? And actually, we need to pull ourselves up a level of that and go, well, what is the bigger thing that we might want to impact or create? Or it's not always just, so people go, oh, I want to be a coach. But I think half the reason people get unstuck with coaching is a lot of people become coaches because someone somewhere has said, you can make 10K a month easily, and they like the idea of personal development, but then they have this sort of system or modality, but then what do I actually do with it? And it takes people a long time to reach a place where they actually know what they want to impact with coaching. The same as, you could learn to be a hypnotist, you could learn to be a coder, you could learn to be a florist. There's so many things. These are the what's, but actually the what's can change. Like, but what is the thing above that that you actually really, really want to do? Like, what's the thing that fires you up?
Mhm.
So it's an interplay between those things as well.
Can you,
um
are you, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but like, do you have an example that you could share? Like, what is of that higher what, you know,
yeah, so
how or the tactical?
yeah, I mean, so I'll give you a business example and I'll give you my personal example. So if you take something like, take Google, right? Because we're all familiar with Google as a business. You know, their bigger thing is about organizing the world's information. Like, I'm not sure that's their purpose statement word for word, but it's something like that. It's organizing the world's information, right? And that's actually everything they do is around that. But their products, their what's are, Gmail and, you know, Google search and pay per click and Google Maps and an endless amount of different products, right? And so you can be at the product level. If you think at the product level, that's where you're going, I'm a project manager, or I'm a coach, or I'm an architect, or I'm a florist, whatever it is. But if you can pull up out of that and think, what is the bigger thing here? Because you can equally use all of these what's in so many different ways. So if you take coaching, you could be helping women with eating disorders through to helping people build businesses through to, it's endless. So it's like pulling yourself up out of that level rather than jumping to the next what. And so if you take, for example, you know, my world, my work is very much around changing the way that we as humans work, the way that we design careers and businesses. And my what's are, you know, I've got human design and the gene keys and hypnosis and consulting and matrix therapies and coaching. And I've got all these components here, but
Mhm.
it's not really about the what's, it's about what is the bigger thing. And that's the bit that, you know, people want to jump into the next what. And I think that's when you can get a little bit off course. So it's like, what's the bigger thing you want to do? How do you want to
Yeah.
impact the world?
How did it come to you that you're changing the way we work? Was it like a ta-da? Like when did it resonate with you?
It's been a process. That's what I say. It's been this. It's been coming through, and it's been shaping and shaping, and then you suddenly realize, oh, this is actually what I'm doing. This
Mm,
is what I'm doing, and this is what feels really, really good.
mm. I love
Hmm.
that. So, like, one of the analogies I love is that you're, I mean, I really believe that we truly architect our careers. And this is kind of what you're talking about, the shaping through the feedback, through the trying and errors, and, what works and these iterations, that it's kind of like a puzzle, and you need to find your own pieces of the puzzle, of your own puzzle fulfillment, purpose, and ultimately what makes you feel alive.
And it's such a fun journey, right? Like, you know, if you get out of the mindset of like I need to work out what's next, and you
Yeah.
go, oh,
If you get out of that mindset.
you know, like what a journey. You
Mhm.
know, like, and what are all the things that I'm going to enjoy along the way and realize and, you know, experience. It's really really fun. So that's the way to look at it. That's the way I look at it.
Have you always looked at it like that?
When it comes to, yeah, I would say that's quite how I see a lot of things. Yeah.
It never felt like a chore or like, daunting.
No, it was, yeah, no, it's always been fun because it's like, because I'm always like, what's the possibility? And there's
Mm.
so much possibility. And there's so much possibility for everyone.
I love that. I
And
love the energy and the optimism and kind of like that perspective that comes from you and from what you're saying and what you're sharing. So I really, really appreciate that about you. You were going to say something else?
I was, and I can't remember what it was now.
Sorry.
That's all good.
So tell us, how can we find you, follow you, and get more of you?
Yes. So if you want to come follow me on Instagram, then I'm sure it'll be in the show notes, but it's Michelle Boyde underscore hypnotist, and Boyd has an E on the end because most people leave that off. So Michelle Boyde underscore hypnotist. And my website is michelleboyd.com. So if you come there, you'll see kind of all my offerings, etc. But if you are at a stage where you are like, yeah, I really want to design what's next, or I've started my business, but I want to shape it further, then just booking in a strategy session with me is probably the best starting point, and that's where we can have a chat one on one and look at what those next steps would be for you. So yeah, so they're the two places: Instagram, my website, best places to come find me.
I love that. So you work both with people in careers and also starting their businesses.
Yeah. So I get a lot of people as well who've made the leap and then realize that they're not quite sure what they want it to look like, or they want to design it so it really works for them.
Mhm.
And also I have many years in brand strategy, so I can support people with all of that side of stuff as well. And how do we do it for your design so that, you know, if you're a projector and you don't have much energy, you're not working 40-hour weeks, for example.
So
Which
you really leverage human design.
I do, yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's one of
How
the
much do
systems.
you leverage hypnotherapy?
A lot. It's a big part of it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a big part. Yeah, because there's always subconscious work to do. Because anytime you're growing and changing, then you know your subconscious needs to grow and evolve with that as well. The way
Yeah.
you view the world. Yeah.
Love that. Definitely check it out. And I'll, like you said, all the links will be in the show notes. And Michelle, thank you so much for your time, for your energy, for being here with us. And it was so lovely to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you. Thank you.